Life, well, it throws things at all of us, doesn't it? It hurts, disappointments, mistakes we make, mistakes others make. It's just part of the deal.
Absolutely unavoidable.
And when that stuff happens, we often bump up against this huge, really personal concept, forgiveness.
Yeah. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly complex.
Right. It's not just some textbook idea. It hits close to home for everyone. So our mission in this deep dive really is to unpack what forgiveness actually means.
Get past the surface level.
Exactly. And try to cut through some of the common ideas and misconceptions that really trip people up. We want to explore why it's just so incredibly difficult sometimes. Understand how holding on to all that pain, well, how it hurts us, maybe more than we realize. And then the important part, find some practical ways to actually start that journey.
Small steps.
Small steps.
Right.
And finally, look at the real benefits it can bring. Think of this as your shortcut to getting your head around this really critical, very human thing.
And we're grounding this conversation, in some solid thinking. We've drawn from quite a rich set of sources, including some really insightful discussions from works like The Journey of Forgiveness, Healing Yourself.
Right. Which gives us some powerful perspectives and, importantly, practical guidance.
Exactly. It keeps it real, actionable, not just theory.
Okay, so let's dive in. Maybe start with those misunderstandings, because I think they're often the first big hurdle.
Definitely. What comes to mind for you?
Well, you hear it all the time, right? People think forgiving means you're saying what happened was okay, or that you have to somehow erase it, just forget it ever happened.
Yeah, the forgive and forget myth.
Totally. Or that it means you're excusing the person, letting them off the hook for what they did.
Which is a huge one. People think if I forgive, they get away with it.
But that's just not it, is it? It's so important to remember people are still responsible for what they did. Consequences are still real.
That's such a critical point. Those misconceptions really do paralyze people. So if it's not those things, what is it at its core?
From your perspective?
Well, ultimately, I see it as a choice, a really profound internal choice you make. It's deciding you're not going to let that past hurt control your present anymore.
Choosing peace over the pain.
Exactly. Choosing peace over pain. It doesn't rewrite history. What happened, but it absolutely changes your relationship with that past event.
Okay. So not changing the facts, but changing how we live inside you.
Precisely. It transforms what's going on in your own heart, your own mind. It helps you kind of unhook from the weight of the anger or the sadness or bitterness.
That idea of changing your relationship with the past, that's powerful. It makes it less about them and more about you.
Entirely. It's an internal shift.
I heard this great analogy once that forgiveness is like finally setting down this incredibly heavy bag you've been lugging around for years.
I like that.
Just imagine carrying this massive suitcase everywhere, day in, day out, feeling that drag, that weight, and then you just put it down.
That sense of relief.
Yeah, that immediate, almost physical lightness you'd feel. That's kind of the essence of what forgiveness offers.
Right.
It's a gift, but it's a gift you give to yourself.
Right. Not primarily to the person who hurt you, though it might affect that relationship too, eventually. But the first beneficiary is you. And that leads to another key point. Forgiveness is absolutely not weakness. Sometimes people think it is, but actually, it takes enormous strength, real courage.
It feels counterintuitive, maybe.
It can, because holding on to anger can feel strong, like you're standing your ground. But really, clinging to resentment, it's like locking yourself in a mental prison, just replaying the same hurt over and over.
Yes, stuck and repeat.
Exactly. But when you choose to forgive, even just begin the process, it's like you're unlocking that cell door, stepping out.
Breathing fresh air.
Yes. Realizing you can choose peace. You don't have to stay trapped in that pain. That's real power. That's freedom.
And it's definitely not like, you just say, I forgive you, and boom, it's done. Magic wand.
Not at all. That's another misconception.
It's a journey, isn't it? A process. Something you actually have to practice, like learning any skill.
Absolutely, like building a muscle. And sometimes old feelings might flare up again. That's okay. It's normal.
Doesn't mean you failed.
Not at all. It just means you revisit the process. You keep choosing that path.
And maybe important to clarify, too, forgiving someone doesn't automatically mean you have to trust them again.
Right? Oh, crucial distinction. Absolutely not.
Or let them back into your life in the same way, or give them another chance to hurt you.
No, forgiveness and trust are two very different things. You can forgive someone for your own peace, but still maintain very firm boundaries because trust hasn't been rebuilt, or maybe it never can be.
That makes sense. Healthy boundaries are about self-respect.
Exactly. And having those clear boundaries can actually make the forgiveness process feel safer, more possible.
Okay, so if it's such a gift to ourselves, brings freedom, strength, why is it often so incredibly hard? Why do we cling to the anger, the sadness, even when we kind of know it's hurting us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are layers to it.
I think sometimes those strong feelings like anger, they could feel almost like armor.
Like protection.
Yeah, like this hard shell that stops you getting hurt again. But the downside is it keeps you closed off too, doesn't it? It stops the real healing.
It's a paradox. The thing you think is protecting you is actually keeping you stuck in the pain.
What about pride? Does that play a role?
Oh, hugely. Pride is a massive obstacle. Think about that inner voice. Why should I forgive them? They don't deserve it.
Right. Or if I forgive, I look weak. Like I'm condoning what they did.
Exactly. Pride wants us to hold our ground, maintain that sense of righteous anger. But, real strength often lies in knowing when letting go is the stronger move for you.
It's not about diminishing yourself.
Not at all. It's about reclaiming your own internal state.
And then there's perfectionism. Can that get in the way?
Definitely. If we hold ourselves or others to these impossible standards of never messing up, well, life isn't like that.
People do mess up. We mess up.
Right. So if you expect flawlessness, forgiving becomes almost impossible because you're always going to be disappointed. It's about accepting imperfection in others and ourselves.
And fear. Plain old fear of being vulnerable. What if they hurt me again?
That's incredibly real. That fear is valid. Why would you want to open yourself up to more pain?
Especially if trust was broken badly.
Exactly. But again, this comes back to the distinction between forgiveness and trust. Forgiveness is internal. Boundaries are external. You can forgive internally while maintaining strong external boundaries to protect yourself. They aren't mutually exclusive.
That's a helpful way to frame it.
And we shouldn't forget culture and upbringing either. How we're raised really shapes our view on this.
Oh, so?
Well, some cultures or families might see forgiveness as, a virtue, a sign of wisdom or spiritual maturity. But others might teach the opposite. Never forget, never forgive. Holding a grudge might be seen as a sign of honor or loyalty or strength.
Wow, yeah. Those messages go deep.
They really do. So understanding where your beliefs about forgiveness came from can be a really useful step in deciding if those beliefs are still serving you.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What actually happens when we don't forgive? When we hold on to those grudges, we often tell ourselves it gives us power, maybe, protects us.
That's the illusion, isn't it?
But that's it, really. The ironic thing is holding on to it often hurts us way more than the person we're angry at.
It really does. There's a tangible cost. Physiologically, psychologically, it takes a toll.
How so physically?
Well, think about it. When you're replaying that hurt, feeling that anger or resentment, what happens in your body?
You get tense. Maybe your heart beats faster, stomach tightens.
Exactly. That's your body's stress response kicking in. And when that's happening chronically, day after day, because you're holding on to something, that prolonged stress is incredibly damaging.
Leads to actual health problems.
Absolutely. Anxiety, headaches, digestive issues, trouble sleeping, weakened immune system. The list goes on. That resentment is literally making you sick.
Wow. It's not just in your head.
Not at all. It's in your body. The mind and body are completely connected here.
I remember there was this man I knew, had a terrible falling out with his brother over money. Really bitter.
Happens all too often.
And he just would not let it go. He'd say, I'll never forgive him. Years went by. And you could just see the tension in him whenever his brother's name came up.
Still holding on to it.
Yeah. And it affected everything. His other family relationships got strained. People felt caught in the middle. He had trouble sleeping. Always seemed stressed.
Well, the brother.
Probably moved on, living his life. But this man was still trapped back there in that moment of anger. It makes you ask yourself, is carrying that pain really worth it for that long?
That story illustrates it perfectly. Who is really suffering the most in that situation?
Right. It's usually the person holding the grudge.
Exactly. The other person might be completely unaware or unaffected by your ongoing anger. You're the one living with it, day in, day out.
There's that saying, right? Resentment is like drinking poison.
And hoping the other person will die. Yes, but it only poisons you.
Yeah. You sacrifice your own peace, your health, your joy. For what?
It's a steep price to pay.
Okay, so knowing all that, how does someone even start? especially when it feels just impossible. Maybe the hurt was too deep, or the person never said sorry.
And those feelings are completely valid. It is hard, often one of the hardest things we do.
So where do you begin?
Small. You have to start small. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Forgiveness isn't either. It's a journey, and it starts with just one step. No pressure to do it all at once.
Okay, one step. What's the first one?
The very first, and honestly, maybe the most crucial, just acknowledge the hurt fully.
Sounds simple, but
It can be surprisingly hard. We often try to push pain away, pretend we're fine, even to ourselves. But you have to give yourself permission to feel what you feel.
name the emotions.
Yes, name them. Is it anger? Sadness? Deep disappointment? Shame, even? Let yourself sit with it, honestly, without judging yourself for feeling it. That's where understanding begins.
So acknowledge the feeling. Then what?
Then, maybe try to understand it a bit more. Not justifying what happened, but exploring why it hurt you so much.
Like what specifically was violated?
Exactly. What value was crossed, what need wasn't met. Looking at it from different angles. Again, not to agree with the action, but just to understand your own internal landscape with a bit more kindness and curiosity.
Okay, acknowledge, understand.
And then a really powerful step is setting the intention to forgive.
Intention. Even if you don't feel ready.
Especially if you don't feel ready. Forgiveness rarely just happens spontaneously. It often starts with a conscious decision. I want to move towards forgiveness.
Like planting a seed.
That's a perfect metaphor. You plant the seed of intention. You might not feel forgiving right away. The ground might still feel hard. But you've made the choice to start watering it.
So you can just say to yourself, okay, I'm willing to try. I want peace more than I want this anger.
Precisely. I don't know how yet, but I'm open to starting the process. That openness, that intention, it shifts everything. It creates the space for healing to begin.
I knew this woman, Sarah. She was so angry at a friend who'd betrayed her trust. Really deeply hurt. For years, she actively resisted forgiving. Just the thought of the friend made her fume. But eventually, she realized how much energy this anger was consuming.
It's exhausting.
Totally. So she decided to try. Small things. She started by just writing down all her feelings, the hurt, the anger, everything. Got it all out on paper.
Acknowledging it.
Yeah. And then she started this tiny daily practice. Every morning, she'd just quietly say to herself, I am willing to move toward forgiveness one step at a time.
Setting the intention.
Exactly. She didn't force it, didn't pretend, but slowly, over weeks and months, something shifted.
The grip loosened.
Yeah. The memory was still there, but it didn't have that same power over her.
Yeah.
She started to feel lighter, more peaceful. Not because she forgot, but because she consistently chose to let go of the weight.
That's a beautiful illustration of the process. It's not magic, it's practice. Consistency.
So the takeaway is start small.
Start small. Be patient with yourself. Progress might feel slow. Old feelings might pop up again. That's normal. The most important thing is to just begin and keep gently choosing peace over bitterness. One small step after another.
Okay. Now, we've mostly talked about forgiving other people, but what about forgiving ourselves?
Ah, yes. The other side of the coin, and often the harder side.
Why do you think that is? Why is self-forgiveness sometimes tougher?
Well, think about it. When you forgive someone else, there's a separation. You're releasing anger toward them. But with self-forgiveness, you're both the one who messed up and the one feeling the hurt from it.
You can't get away from yourself.
Exactly. You live with your choices, your memories, your regrets 24/7. That makes it incredibly complicated.
And maybe self-doubt gets tangled up in it.
Absolutely. That voice saying, how could I have done that? What kind of person am I? We let a mistake define our entire identity.
Instead of seeing it as something we did.
Right. And that connects back to perfectionism too. We often hold ourselves to these impossible standards. We'd show compassion to a friend who made the same mistake, but we beat ourselves up relentlessly.
It makes you pause and think. Are you kinder to others than you are to yourself?
It's a crucial question to ask.
If a friend came to you full of guilt, would you shame them? Or would you listen, remind them they're human, encourage them to learn from it?
Most of us would choose compassion for the friend.
So the invitation is, can you offer that same kindness, that same understanding to yourself?
That's the heart of self-compassion. And self-forgiveness isn't about letting yourself off the hook or pretending it didn't happen. No. It's about facing your mistakes honestly, seeing them clearly, learning whatever lessons are there, and then choosing to let go of the crushing guilt that keeps you stuck.
So it's acknowledging, learning, and releasing.
Exactly. It's being able to say, yes, I messed up, maybe badly, but I am more than that mistake. I am more than the worst thing I've ever done.
That's powerful.
And like forgiving others, it's a process. It takes time. It takes practice. Choosing compassion over self-criticism again and again.
Okay, so whether it's forgiving others or ourselves, how do we make this more concrete? Like, what are some practical things people can actually do day to day, not wait for some big epiphany?
Yeah, great question. Making it a practice, not an event. Well, one simple tool we already touched on is journaling.
Writing it down.
Yeah. Just getting those thoughts and feelings out of your head and onto paper can bring so much clarity. You start to see patterns, understand things differently.
Even writing letters you don't send.
Absolutely. Writing a letter to the person or even to yourself, pouring out everything you feel, anger, hurt, confusion, can be incredibly cathartic. You don't mail it. It's just for you.
Okay. What else?
Meditation can be really helpful too.
Does it have to be long sessions?
Not at all. Even 5 or 10 minutes. Just sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, noticing thoughts without judgment, maybe repeating a simple phrase silently, like, I choose peace, or I release this anger, or may I be kind to myself. Just gently guiding your mind toward that intention of letting go and finding calm.
So anchoring yourself in the present, choosing peace right now.
Exactly. And another really valuable thing is talking.
Talking it through.
Yeah. With someone you trust, a good friend, a family member, a therapist, someone who can just listen without judgment.
Sometimes just saying it out loud helps.
It really does. It helps you process it. They might offer a different perspective, or just hearing yourself say it can shift something internally. Don't underestimate the power of being heard.
Okay, journaling, meditation, talking. What about how we think about the situation itself?
Yes. Reframing. That's a powerful technique.
What does that mean exactly, reframing?
It means consciously trying to look at the situation from a different angle, with fresh eyes.
So instead of thinking, they deliberately tried to hurt me,
you might ask, is it possible they were acting out of their own pain or fear or ignorance? Does that excuse it? No. But does it make it less personal? Maybe easier to let go of?
or for self-forgiveness instead of, I'm terrible for doing that.
Maybe ask, okay, what can I learn from this so I don't repeat it? How can this make me stronger or wiser? It's not about making excuses. It's about finding a narrative that allows you to move forward with more compassion.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Seeing the bigger picture, exactly, and finding a little more understanding for them or for yourself. You know, it's interesting, too, how many cultures incorporate forgiveness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, think about traditions like Yom Kippur in Judaism, the Day of Atonement, or the emphasis during Ramadan in Islam on letting go of grudges. It's seen as vital for personal growth, for healing relationships, for community.
So it's recognized across cultures as important.
Deeply important. A powerful force for healing, individually and collectively.
So the main thing is consistency, small actions.
Absolutely. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just weave small acts of intention journaling, breathing, talking, reframing into your life. They add up. They build that new mindset over time.
And what's the ultimate payoff? When people do this work, what changes?
Well, remember that heavy backpack analogy.
Yeah.
You finally put it down. There's this incredible feeling of lightness, freedom, the emotional weight you might not have even fully realized you were carrying. It lifts.
A lighter heart.
A genuinely lighter heart, and that opens up so much.
Like better relationships.
Definitely. When you let go of old grudges, you create space for more understanding, more kindness, more genuine connection.
Not just with the person forgiven.
No, with everyone. You approach the world differently. You're less defensive, more open. It ripples outwards. Again, it doesn't mean you forget or become naive, but you stop letting past hurts poison your present interactions.
And peace of mind. Does it bring that?
Oh, absolutely. Think about how much mental energy resentment consumes, replaying events, stewing in anger. It's exhausting.
Keeps you stuck in the past.
Completely. Forgiveness breaks that cycle. It allows you to actually be present, to enjoy simple moments without that dark cloud hanging over you, that kind of peace. It's invaluable.
There's another story that comes to mind. A man named Daniel. He was angry at his father for decades.
Long time to carry that.
Yeah. His dad had been distant, kind of harsh when he was a kid. Daniel felt really unloved. And even after his father died, Daniel held on to that anger fiercely.
Didn't want to let him off the hook, even posthumously.
Exactly. He felt forgetting would mean saying it was okay, and it wasn't okay. But slowly, he started to see how that anger was, poisoning his life.
How it was affecting him now?
Right. his marriage, his friendships, his ability to just feel joy. So he decided to try, not a big dramatic moment, but small steps.
Like we talked about.
Yeah. Journaling, talking to a friend, just trying to offer himself some kindness around it. And gradually something shifted.
He started to feel different.
He started to feel free. The anger didn't vanish overnight, but it lost its intensity, its grip. He felt lighter, calmer, found a kind of peace he hadn't realized was possible.
Wow. That's the transformation.
Yeah.
And that really highlights the core truth. Forgiveness doesn't change the past. What's done is done. But it profoundly changes your future.
How you move forward.
And who you are moving forward. It opens doors. It softens your perspective. It gives you the strength to walk ahead without being chained to yesterday's pain. It's about you winning.
Choosing peace.
Choosing peace, choosing freedom, choosing hope over bitterness and regret.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. What forgiveness is, what it isn't, why it's hard, how it helps, how to start. It really comes down to it being a choice, doesn't it? A journey. And a gift to yourself.
One of the most powerful gifts, even if it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
So maybe the question for you listening right now is, who comes to mind? Who do you need to forgive?
Could be someone close.
Yeah.
Someone from way back whose actions still echo.
Or maybe it's yourself.
Yeah. That's often the big one. So here's a gentle challenge for this week. Can you take just one small step?
It doesn't have to be huge.
No. Maybe just 10 minutes writing down how you feel. Or taking a few deep breaths when the anger flares up and just choosing peace in that moment.
Or even just allowing one kind thought, one understanding thought about that person or about yourself.
Just one.
Because those small steps, they build momentum. They lead toward that clarity, those warmer connections, that lighter heart we talked about.
A more peaceful, freer future.
Exactly.
Remember, every little step counts. It takes time. It definitely takes courage, and it takes a lot of kindness, especially towards yourself. But ultimately, it's so, so worth it.